But the people that we see in Egypt today, the majority of them were not there 150 years ago or 200 years ago. They were brought to Egypt by Western colonialists. They brought them from the region of the shipping routes between India, Arabia, places such as Yemen, Pakistan, and other places, even as far as Indonesia and Malaysia. They were brought over as slaves, or forced labor they call it. Yes, they were brought over in the 19th century for the construction of the Suez Canal. And from there we have the people of Egypt today. They were not there 150 to 200 years ago. Therefore, in simple terms, the current Muslim religion and these people were not in Egypt 150 or 200 years ago. And then we have the big problem, the Cairo Koran, put together in 1924. Yes, and they claim it's from old manuscripts or ancient manuscripts. That's impossible, because the people, or these Muslim people who are in Egypt today, were not even there 150 or maximum 200 years ago. So this is impossible.
Welcome back, David. We are very excited to be hearing from you again and to continue the exploration.
Yes, today we will go through who invented Islam, and a very big shocking thing is everybody knows the stories. Like, you know, in the West we talk about the Europeans went to live in America, and the majority of them only in the last 150 years. Same like they went to Canada, Australia, and many other things. And but nobody talks about the migration of the other races around the world. It's because, you know, many people don't investigate it, and the impact of the fall of Moscow. But as you saw in that video that I did with Natiketa, to show the impact that it had in the Middle East of Eastern Europeans and Central Europeans going there. You noticed this, yes?
Right, yes. I watched it, yeah.
So now the thing is, what many people don't know is that many Russians or Eastern Europeans went to the Middle East in the last 150 years. Here, you would call them Arabs today, or Syrians, yes? But these, they intermixed, and they give them bogus names like Circassians, or the children of Sarah, and Syria, Circassia, and things like this. But when you have a look at them, you know that they integrated. Like here is many in Turkey, and of course you will see them as just Turks today. Yes, but the thing is, anyway, there is a strange story they tell you in history of a guy named Muhammad Ali in English, or Muhammad Ali Pasha in English, but I will use his name, what Turks call him, or what the old Europeans would have called him, Mehmet Ali Pasha, or Mehmet Ali Pasha. This is the name I'm used to. And they will tell you that he came from Albania. People can check in their own time. But if anybody checks the history of Albania or Greece or the Balkans, at that time, they will say the Ottoman Empire was there. And Napoleon mysteriously invaded Russia. But he also mysteriously invaded Egypt, that they say, and also the French were in America. Yes. And then the strange thing is, the French policy mysteriously changed after the siege of Paris in the 1870s. Yes. So the thing is, the siege of Paris. Let me see when that was. Yes, 1870. Of course, they've given it a bogus date, 19th of September. Yes, but the thing is, you know, as we spoke about, you know, the Vatican, as they left Constantinople and from Egypt, when they failed with the armies of this Muhammad from you know, with his armies of the Crusaders, they stormed Constantinople or Istanbul. The Vatican, they landed in Western Europe, and we've got skulls and bones everywhere. But then the thing is, what we hear is a strange story of the French invading 1812, but they invaded Egypt, Bonaparte or whoever. Yes. So now we've got the siege of Paris, that happens. The 19th century history that played with the centuries. Yes, but it was around that time what we would call 1870. So Paris changed hands again. Many people don't realize this. If you have a look at the siege of Paris and the French cities and everything, it's like after that we see that Paris and France has totally been blown up. Yes, so it means once again the world order and things like this changed hands. Yes, it's like here would be an example of Paris, which is just ridiculous. So we could see that, of course, they will say that the Germans never took the city or things like this, and the Germans were with the Ottoman. Yes, but we could basically see that they're repairing the city after, but it's basically been trashed. So it's like they didn't just trash it, but you know.
But just to mention, this is also fascinating because this is supposed to be a picture from 1811 or 1850 or something. Or when is this picture supposed to be taken? Because
1870.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, but the main thing is, it's like if you do something, of course, those people will come back for revenge. And what many people don't realize is that when the French or the armies of this Pharaonish, when they arrived in Moscow or in that northern region, everybody had left. And the war was still continuing, and all these Eastern Europeans and from Prussia and Central Europe many are going to the Americas, and many are going south and to the east. Yes, you'll notice this video with Nachiketa. So now mysteriously we have, what do you call it? Yes, Mehmet Ali Pasha. Yes, from the Balkans invades Egypt. Now what Fomenko shows about Egypt is that he says the Russians were in Egypt. And of course, Mehmet Ali Pasha is Eastern European. Before then, those people came from Northern Europe. It's the Russian nobility. We will go through it soon. So, and these people who arrived there, they call them Circassians. And of course, they've given some fake history to say that they were the Mamluks. They arrived 1,000 years before. Yes, but of course, the thing is, so he seizes Egypt. Yes, and so not only does he seize Egypt, but he seizes Mecca and Medina with the fall of Moscow. Yes, the city of the mosque. It was very important that they chose this, as Nosovsky points out, the old world order. A lot of it was religion was based on science. So the location of Mecca, we've spoken about before, is geographically located in the center of the land. It is no accident. Yes. So of course, with their northern headquarters gone, yes, they made a new southern headquarters. These original Islam people, and so people don't want to accept it. I don't care, especially Islamists and Quranists, but the thing is that they're going to tell us some bogus history that there was classical Arabic from the 7th century and then mysteriously it disappeared in the Middle East. But now we will see, the thing is the classical Arabic, nobody speaks it in Egypt, we've been through it. So now Egypt develops this modern classical Arabic mysteriously after the arrival of these Russians, or who they call Circassians. Yes, or they've just called him Albanian or whatever. They just give some strange names. But anyway, or sometimes they will call him a Turk. Yes, Mehmet Ali Pasha, Muhammad Ali of Egypt. Yes. So the thing is, what do you call it? So they turn around and say that after he came, within 100 years, Arabic, what do you call it? They say that that he replaced the local Arabic with Turkish as the official language. But no such language as Turkish existed then. It was Ottoman Turkish, which was like Eastern European, which many Quranists are avoiding, and they're saying, oh, what do you call it? There was classical Arabic, standard Arabic, and these people, researchers like David, are saying this and that. But because they want to just translate their Quran or other books just according to their wishes, they're totally ignoring. Yes, there was a language called Ottoman Arabic. Yes, so the thing is, and then this Ottoman Arabic, of course, they call it Turkish today, but it's not Turkish. It's actually Ottoman Arabic. 80%, 88% or 90% of his vocabulary was Arabic and Persian. And then this is debatable, but the majority is like I found for the writing, it's like 50 or 60 or 70% of the words are actually what we would find in modern Arabic today. And in modern Arabic, they've added on many other words, local dialects, and other things. But then the strange thing is, at the same time, the British and the French and all these other things, there's many different invasions going on in Egypt. Yes, but the thing is, and then when we look at this old Arabic, which was in Northern Europe, I mean, there's hundreds of millions that were circulated, and many have been modified in many things, but there's millions of coins. We find that this Arabic is different, that there is another type of cubic Arabic, not from Kufa. Kufa, we can't even find this city 100 years ago. Even the picture, so nobody is living there, and some new building has been built there, and it's a forgery. Yes, and even when we look in Northern Europe, the Arabic letters, they even have the letter P there, and many other things. So we can see it's been totally modified. Yes, and so even in today, there's the modern Turkish language. They'll call it Osmanli Arabca. Yes, what do you call it? Yes, Osmanli Arabic.
Uh-huh.
Yes, Ottoman Arabic. It's not Turkish at all. Yes, and so the thing is, flamenco also says it, but people laugh at it. But when you really check it, nobody spoke Italian, nobody spoke Spanish, nobody spoke German, nobody
Yes, and
spoke French, nobody spoke English.
the case in
Yes.
Turkey today, they even call it Turkey, of course, with what was his name, of course, his nationalist movement was also very important and suspicious, no? And to create Turkey in the first place. Right, yeah, right.
Mustafa Kemal, yes. The thing is, it's not just about suspicion. The thing is, the old world order failed. It actually failed because there was, like I pointed out, Hindu Quranists. Yes, there was Christian evangelists, things like this. People who were always trying to give new meanings and new things, and so basically invent new languages. So in the end, the people in power did invent new languages. Because the thing is, there was a lot of chaos, to stop all the problems in society. Yes, so they had to do many things. Like, for example, when we just look at the English language, yes, just for the word messenger, yes, could it mean bearer, courier, dispatcher, errand boy, herald, letter carrier, mailman, postman, runner, town crier, broker, delivery man, go between, judoka, milkman, postwoman, sender. So the thing is, in the past, people didn't use thousands of words. Yeah, so what they did was these people who invented dictionaries, especially for commercial purposes, they invented many words and played around with the spelling. And for example, if anybody knows typical Arabic for mathematical codes, for the number one, the thing is they say wahid or wahda or wahid. So some spell it E or EHYD. Yes, it's backwards. As you can see, the E is basically the same. Yes, and so that's one spelling for it. Yes, so but other E. What was that? EHYD. So here is another spelling for the same word. So the thing is, people play with these for their mathematics. There's E, A, which is the number one, yes, and H and D. But we've got what they called Aleph, or the alpha. Yes, so why is it spelled differently there? Yes, so the thing is, then, what do you call it? Yes, you could change it again. Wahid. Yeah, because some people will say, oh no, what do you call it? There's 3 points to the word. So this one's spelled EHD, Wahid. So the thing is, they played around with the spellings and many other things. Yes, just so that then they can say there's a mathematical miracle in the Quran, because the way that you spell this number for the word Wahid, yes, if you spell it, yes, with a different spelling, it comes to the number 19. In other words, God is one and one God and 19 and things like this. So the thing is, these people who wrote these dictionaries, it's just a joke. And then they invented meanings for many words. and things like this. So that's all they did. Yes, and so the thing is, let's go through the history of Egypt, and we will find that there's something wrong. Yes, what is shocking is that we talk about the migration of people from Europe to America. Well, guess what? The majority of the people that we see in Egypt today were not even there 200 years ago. Maybe even 99%, but more than 90% were not even there. If they weren't there, it means Islam wasn't there. If Islam wasn't there, the Quran wasn't even there, because these people weren't even there. But now there's many people who are trying to say the Cairo Quran, blah, 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 that's the real one. But guess what, guys? there were no Muslims there. We'll go through the proof. It's because these people are trying to push and demand that certain things, they're saying, this is from God, that's from God, this is from God, that's from God. Oh, this word is from God, that word's from God. You got to follow, you got to obey, bow down, man. I mean, well, what the hell is this? Yes, they even won't let researchers do do any research or even talk. Well, anyway, this Cairo Quran mysteriously came in 1924. But guess what? The majority of these Muslims weren't even there. And the majority of the so-called Arabs, they only arrived after the 1840s or 50s. And if somebody's going to turn around and say, oh, how can they remember? Oh, no. You know what some of these Islamists and Quranists say, Raphael? You'll find it shocking. Yes. For example, yes, the European races who are in America, they remember that their grandparents told them that let's say your grandfather will tell you that his grandfather told him he was an orphan. Thousands of people, millions of people know these stories throughout Europe and America and Australia and Latin America. Yes?
Yeah? Yes, very true, yes.
Oh, but guess what some of these Islamists and Quranists say? Oh, we can't trace the history of Muslims. Yes, there's no way they can remember, 100 years ago. But no, the Europeans and Americans can. Are they trying to be racist here and say that people from the Middle East have got no oral tradition, can't remember anything? But no, the Europeans can remember. Throughout New York, Chicago, go city to city, ask people, they'll say, my grandfather told me that his parents or his grandparents, or they were orphans, or they came from Poland, or they came from Italy, they came from Spain. But no, when it comes to the Middle East and the Muslims, yes, just to justify, yes, what they say is the Quran and the meaning of this book, and just to justify and say this is what God says, they're going to say, oh no, no way can they remember. Don't you call this hypocrisy and evil and a lie? Or what do you call it?
Yeah, what to say?
Is that all you say? It's like there's people out there trying to brainwash people. I told you, hundreds of people have started to read and study the Quran because it has an important message, which I pointed out. But that doesn't mean that other people should come along and turn and say, hey, don't you declare this is the word of God, or that's the word of God, that's not the word of God, this is not the word of God. I mean, what is this?
Well, as with any, let me just say, as with any text, it's one thing is to take something as a research document and try to extract valuable information and ideas. And the other thing is to say that something is an absolute truth, which is especially problematic if then you have individuals, of course, even with the US Constitution, apparently, people.
Well, thank you for using nice words.
No, let me just say, let me just finish. When people interpret it and then everyone can subjectively interpret what they or their group say is the absolute truth from God. Of course, that is very problematic. Yes.
Sorry, I'm not going to use intellectual garbage here. I'm going to use simple words. Just a bunch of monkeys. Yes, trying to brainwash people. These people are the type of people that led to the collapse of the beautiful old world order. Here is, what do you call it? Yes, a Masonic lodge in Cairo. Yes, as you can see in the 20th century, in the first half of it, I think. And there were many Masonic lodges. I think it's in the 1940s or something. But anyway, the thing is, the people over there, they weren't there. Yes, where did they come from? The majority of the Egyptians. How did they come? So now when Mehmet Ali Pasha invades, yes, what we saw is that there's all these Circassians there. So now you will see Circassians, and of course, somebody's going to turn around. Have a look. Today you will call these Arabs in Syria, in Iraq, in Egypt, in Palestine. But what do you call it? They're Russians. They're protesting. Recognize what happened to us, that we had to come from Russia. You see? Yes. They have to say you could clearly see that many of them have interbred. They don't look like Russians anymore today. Yes? Do they look like Russians?
Well, I mean, they have a very pretty.
On.
No, well, they have
Let's
pretty
be
pale. They
realistic.
have pretty pale skin, but no, they
That's
don't.
not
They don't
enough.
look.
They're called Arabs.
No, I
Yes.
just want to say that you can still see the heritage. Also, I would say.
Yeah, many people, many of them, a minority, have not interbred. But here you can see, here is as you go further north. This is in Turkey, I think. Yeah. This is it. This is in Turkey. There is Turkish words. Yes, you can see that there. You can see they look a bit more like Russians. Yes. So now the thing is, when Mehmet Ali Pasha, yes, went south, and there's many people who didn't interbreed, like here, is in Jordan. Yes, you could clearly see that they're Russians. Yes, and they went south. Yes, and others that you could see, these are from central Russia. You could see are from there. And the thing is, many of them you will see they protest in Arab countries basically every year. And what do they say there in English? You could read it there.
Turkey marks 151st anniversary of Circassian tragedy.
The next one.
And next one it says Jordan Circassians.
No, in the picture they've got a poster.
Oh, balk at Sochi Olympus. We will never forget. Yeah.
We will never forget. Yes. Yes. So, of course, what do you call it? Yes, other people are going to say, what do you call it? How could many of these Quranists, just to justify their things, they're going to say, oh no, the Europeans remember, but the Muslims can't. Oh no, so because they just want to justify their Qurans and Quran translations. But here we have is a village in Turkey. So now, of course, you could see many of these are still ethnically Russian. In fact, let me make the picture bigger. Yes, the thing is, they've not, a lot of them have interbred, but as you could see, some of them or some of them haven't. And of course, they've just invented names for them, the Uyghur language or whatever. Yes, and then when you look for the Uyghurs, yeah, their great-grandfathers who came from Russia, when they migrated, here they are. You can clearly see that they're Russians. Yes, they came. And so now many people are going to say, and then when you even look at the Ottoman army who was fighting the British and their interests in Arabia, in Iraq, Syria, everywhere, you will see a lot of them still were Russians. Now, many people don't want to admit this. And of course, they're going to say the 1924 Quran was done by pious people and collected. Well, let's have a look at the Ottoman Sultan's granddaughter in the 1930s. And, Mehmet Ali Pasha's, family, and the Circassians who were ruling Egypt. Yes, the Khedive Ismail and the rest of their families. I mean, they really look Muslim to you now here, don't they? They really look like they care about the local people, what's going on. Yes, they really look very Islamic, don't they? Yes. Oh, here is a classroom in Turkey in the 1930s. Yes, and you could still see before people interbred. Now, here is a picture. You will notice there's all types of people, and you will clearly see that there is Germanic and Russian other type of people in the classroom. Yeah, and what do you call it? Mediterranean type here. It's just a school in the 1930s. You can see it. Can you see their European features? Today, their descendants have interbred with locals. Can you see it? It's clear. Yeah, so the thing is, the collapse of Moscow was very big. And of course, many of these Islamists and Quranists are laughing when Flamenco says that Islam was in Europe and in Northern Europe, and Russia and Moscow was a major center. Yes. So the thing is, Mehmet Ali Pasha and the rest of them, they never studied Arabic because there was Ottoman Arabic that you could still see. Even Mustafa Kemal Pasha, who they call Ataturk, they're wearing these Russian hats. Yes, you can see it that it was well known
Hmm.
that what do you call it? They're wearing these Russian hats that many of the British wear. So the thing is, they went and they've interbred. And the history of all these sultans and everything you can check in Egypt. It's strange. Yeah, they've given false dates, 19s, too many 19s and everything. But anybody who looks at the history will be able to figure it out. But anyway, so Mehmet Ali Pasha and these people, they come running to Egypt, like even in Syria. Yes, and everywhere else. There's so many of them, and people cannot imagine. Yes, when they say Circassian genocide, it was like this, like when the Americans attacked Iraq in 1991. Around that time, here are the Kurds moving around. It's a tragedy. We don't
Yeah.
understand mass movements of people. We seem to think that they've only been happening recently, but humanity has been always moving around, mass migration. So one of the worst mass migrations was this invasion of Moscow and northern and Prussia and Eastern Europe by the so-called Napoleonic armies. And they invaded Egypt also. The question is why? And as we can see, the reason is it's because the Russians or this so-called Eastern Europeans rule the place. Yes. So now when we look at Paris, many, not Paris, I mean, yeah, it looks like Paris, but many people don't know this. But downtown Cairo looks like Paris. It was built by the Circassians and the Europeans. The Circassians are
Hmm.
Europeans.
Hmm.
Yes, they started the construction of the city. They started when they arrived. Our Egypt was mainly empty when they went there. And Flamenco says that the Russians used to go there before, and many of their leaders they built tombs there, and he even shows the Russian involvement of building the pyramids. At first, even I laughed at it. Yes, but I knew that the Russian presence was very big. But now, when you look at these things and you think, damn, these Circassians, they've given an invented name. It's because you don't realize these things because the fake names and everything. And all these things. And then when you go through the fake names in history, you begin to realize, oh my God, this is just a scam. They've told us some bogus history. Yes, these things. A few details of these things and the inventions of these religions and things that are going on are in my two new books. If anybody wants, the mini details. So now the thing is,
Just
let's
very briefly, because you're showing this
go on.
picture from Cairo, and I
Yeah.
believe you mentioned that you also visited yourself. So around when would you then say the city would have been constructed, all of these buildings, around what year in the current
The
timeline?
constructions started after the main Russian invasion, which we call when the French and these armies went to Moscow. The elite and everybody they just left. They took their cash. They went to other places, and many of the elite became businessmen.
And this would
Yes,
be
in
like around the
Germany.
year 18 something, 18.
1820s, you could say. So
And just why I'm
the thing is,
asking,
Mehmet
because
Ali Pasha went with a huge army, yes,
yes,
and with many people, and he had a lot of money. We're not sure where his father or grandfather came from, but it looks like they were part of the elite from Eastern Europe and from Germany when it collapsed, and they crossed into Egypt, and they thought, new land there, we're just going to build a new city. That's how it goes. Unfortunately, that's the reality. They've gone there, they've taken it over. We'll go somewhere else, and we'll start somewhere else. Yes.
I'm
So
just
now,
asking about this, and then I'm done with this, because if these are also tall or particularly imposing buildings, this.
anybody can have a look
Mhm.
and check the history. That in the 19th century, they built Cairo. It was designed on the same design as Paris because Paris was the New Jerusalem at the time. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, if you go there, you'll think it's Paris. But a lesson to be learnt is that they brought too much immigration for the construction of Suez Canal. That's where the new people come from. We're going to go through this. And then because of the high birth rate, because they brought them as slaves. and they abuse these people.
Hmm.
So because they abuse them, that's why Egypt's population has skyrocketed to 110, 120 million people today. It's in the third world. 50%, half the people are peasants, almost like with a bit of modern amenities, but we're talking living in the 19th century or 18th century. And it's so ridiculous. We don't know what the future of that country is. It can't feed itself. And the thing is, the population is going to double again. It's like it's gone up from, I forgot, I think it went up from 3 million to about 6 million by the 1860s or something, and 10 million by 100 years ago. And in 100 years, it's gone up to 110. It went up to 100 million. I mean, what a joke.
Hmm.
Yes, the thing is, it's because they brought these people and they didn't manage them or integrate them, and they brought them as slaves. Many people don't know about the slave trade, and they brought them from the Indian subcontinent. And many of them, it's like they brought them from India to Arabia as slaves. Let's say if they brought some people in the 1850s, then in the 1860s, their children or somebody, they brought them from Arabia to Egypt. So originally they came from as you could see from India. That's why we see a lot of them have Indian features. It's shocking. Let's go through this. It's because many people, they're idolizing this Cairo Quran, Corpus Quran, Islam Awakened, and they're saying these are the meanings. Well, we went through it. The dictionaries were invented. Now let's see if there is even a Quran in Egypt. Yes, let's go through it. Because these people, they're bringing a religious agenda. Yes, so that's why I thought this is very important because I'm going through history. Yes, I'm not going through religion. So now here is somebody, Ayman. It's an Arabic name. So the thing is, many people are asking where these Qurans came from. Yes, where did they come from? You could read it yourself.
The fact is that copies of the Arabic Quran of various readings were printed in Europe and sent to Muslim countries.
So one, the Europeans are printing these Qurans and they're sending them to Muslim countries, knowing that more people are going to become Muslim. Yes. So what are the differences, the various readings?
Before the 1924 Quran, there were various readings of the Quran. The differences included variations in letters, verbs, and nouns.
Yes. So that's what they did. So now the thing is, in France, for example, they use in many websites often the Tunisian Quran and things like this. So now many people are going to say that Egypt's people knew what the Quran meant. They could write this current Arabic alphabet and this Arabic language, they knew it. Yeah, many of these Islamists are going to claim this. Yes, we're going to go through soon where the people came from. Yes, but the thing is, of course, you have to educate them and things like this. So, for example, you could read this.
Fighting illiteracy in the Arab world. The efforts of all Arab countries have resulted in the reduction of illiteracy rates from 85% in 1950 to...
That's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Let me just show you. In 1950, 85% couldn't read and write. In 1900 or 1924, when the Cairo Quran came out, we're talking 98% couldn't read and write throughout the Arab world.
Yep.
They can't read and write. They can't read and write. So the thing is, there was an oral Quran. But we're going to go through this oral Quran too, either in this video or the next soon. So the people can't read and write. Yes. And the thing is, and if people are going to say they speak Arabic, because nobody speaks Arabic as a native language, yes, many people say indeed.
Indeed, no serious linguist can claim the existence of a real community of 280 million people who speak Arabic at any level of native speaker, I guess.
Native speakers. Yeah, nobody does. They learn it in school. Who introduced this system in schools? And the thing is, because the schools have failed and people still talk their dialects, the education system is very bad. Half of Egypt still lives in villages like peasants. Yes. So many people are predicting. Yes. What are they predicting?
As per experts, Arabic will get obsolete in the next 100 years.
Yes, as a spoken language. So now we will go through the reality of Egypt. Yes, the absolute reality. Yes. So now here people can read hundreds of books written by Egyptians. They can go and ask people, go and travel there, spend 6 months, go to the villages, talk to people's parents. You could read this.
The creation of Western education systems in colonial Egypt and India. At the time of the British occupation of Egypt in 1882, education was overwhelmingly centered on a transmission of religious ritual and text. In Muslim kutabs, boys memorized the Quran and learned rituals such as prayer and ablution.
That's it. Ablution means washing their heads, hands, and feet. Yes, it's because the people didn't even have shoes. Yes. So this is very important because many people are asking if the people didn't even have shoes. Yes, it makes sense that the Quran will say, wash your head, your hands, and your feet. So this raises the question, how old is the Quran? Have things been added or deleted in the Quran? Because they brought many of these people from India. That's in Hyderabad in India, and they look the same, exactly like the villages in Egypt at the time. And here there is an example of transit from India, and of course they brought a few Africans. So they brought them from Baluchistan, a bit more wider skinned in the Sindh region, and other things, even from Afghanistan. So they're bringing them, and here is what do you call it, in Zanzibar. Yes, on transit, that they're sending them to Egypt, sending them to from Egypt even to the Maghreb, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. And so have a look carefully. Have they got shoes on? No. So this was a major reason why they said, wash your heads, hands, and feet. So now this is very important. So the British invaded in 1882. We will go through why they invaded. Yes, the children are memorizing the Quran, and they're learning how to pray, and what do you call it, how to wash their heads, hands, and feet. But what we can see is, if anybody has a look at these kutabs, kitab means book. Yes, these places where they learn the book. Yes, they didn't memorize the whole Quran. In different places, it's like they basically memorized about 5 or 10% of the Quran. That's it. Yes, and so that's it.
But that's not a
At the
lot.
time. You think that's not a lot? Don't worry, I know that there's going to be Islamists who are going to say, oh, before the British came, they were still memorizing it. That's proof that the oral Quran was there. Of course, I've always said it's maximum 200 or 300 because of the fake calendar. If you remove the calendar, it's maximum 200 years, or realistically 150 years. Yes. So the thing is, at the time, yes, because before the British came, they prepared the invasion. Yes, there was reasons for the invasion. We'll go through the region. So there were these book schools for the Christians also. So what they did as well, like their Muslim counterparts, you could read this.
Right, like their Muslim counterparts, however, the central role of Coptic kutabs was the transmission of religious material, particularly memorization of parts of the Psalms and Gospels, and learning Coptic language prayers used in church services.
That's it. Basically, brainwashing people. How to pray, how to wash, yes, and things like this. That's it. Because then once you and don't forget,
Is that why they call it brain wash? Because you wash your head?
98% of the people lived in villages. Let's go through the reality. The people arrived, the majority of these people arrived only about 20 years before that. Now you could carry on reading.
Even so, by 1878, kutabs educated no more than 2 to 4% of all Egyptian children.
What? Are you trying to tell me that only 2% of people were, don't forget there's Christian schools and Jewish schools, yes, and also secular schools. So let's say it's 4%, then that would mean the Muslims only had a 1% share. 1% of all the children in Egypt were learning how to pray, wash their heads, hands, and feet. Yes, and how to read basic Quran. We're talking 1/10 of the Quran. That's it. 1%, 99% were not. So let's see now the British invade, and what do they do? Carry on reading.
From
What do the British
1882 to 1922, the British created an educational system in which the children of a very small elite were trained in English or French language schools to staff the bureaucracy, while increasingly large...
Right, stop.
Yes?
Now, when we're saying the elite, at that time, there was still a lot of racism. So the thing is, the Circassians or the Europeans who came and they were in the cities. So they were actually training in English and French and other things. And the original Ottoman Arabic was still there. Or Osmanli Arabic, they call it, was there for the elite. Yes, for them. So they're a minority. And then the British opened up. What did they do? Increasingly?
Yes, while increasingly large numbers of kutabs were retooled to provide elementary education in Arabic for the masses.
Carry on.
By 1905, the Ministry of Education inspected over 2,500 schools and supervised the education of approximately 76,000 students. By 1906, the number of students had doubled. In order to compete for government aid, kutabs had to focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, abstain from teaching foreign languages, and accept monthly inspections.
What? So the British are now telling people elementary education in Arabic. This wasn't just Arabic. They have to memorize the Quran and they have to learn the Arabic language and the Arabic alphabet. Alif, Ba, Ta, Sa, Jim, Ha, Ka. They call it like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. What's the next one? H. Yeah. Alif, Ba, Ta, Sa, Jim, Ha, Ka. The British were teaching them this alphabet. Oh, they were doing this throughout the entire Middle East. You can go and check it, guys. Throughout the entire Asia, everywhere, all over the world. That you've got to learn this Arabic and you've got to memorize these things in the Quran. You've got to learn how to pray, wash your heads, hands and feet. You can check all of these. So in order to get cash, yes, you had to focus on reading this Quran and learning these few things, yes. And the kutabs were exactly inside the mosques or next door to the mosques. That's where they were. Or the British built the mosques in all the villages. 98% were in the villages. In other words, controlled these people.
And why would you say...
I don't know why they wanted to control them. There was a genuine reason. And they had to abstain from teaching foreign languages because the people could not speak Arabic. Yes, or you could only teach this Arabic. But the thing is, most of the teachers were trained by the British in Darul Uloom in Egypt. At the same time, we went through this before. And the thing is, yes. And but it's a joke. Carry on reading. It's a joke.
Teachers in subsidized kutabs had to receive formal training, not only in reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also in religion itself.
Carry on.
Lord Cromer, Egypt's first consul general, reported proudly...
Well done, my dear chap. This is proud. I'm so proud of you. Yes, you managed to get them learning this religion, memorizing this book, and learning this language. And we have written the dictionaries and we put the meanings there.
Right.
Don't worry, by 1924, we're going to compile this Cairo Quran. We're still occupying this place. We opened all the mosques. We opened all the schools. At first, only 1% of the local kids were learning just a few, few verses or chapters of the Quran. Oh, people can go and check. It's the same history in all the Muslim countries. Sorry, everybody. Yes. And so now, what do you call it? Yes. The thing is, if you wanted to get cash, if you performed better in brainwashing the people, you got more cash. You were lucky. Jesus, I wish I was there at that time. I could have made trillions. I could have brainwashed the entire country. Oh, but then I would need a very good, command in this Arabic language. Yeah. Well, anyway, carry on. Lord Cromer, proudly.
Lord Cromer, Egypt's first consul general, reported proudly in 1903 that as a result of his reforms, quote, in order to qualify for the post of head teacher in a Mohammedan kutab, a thorough knowledge of the Quran and the principles of Islam is required, end quote.
Yes! Tell those peasants that we've kidnapped and brought them as slaves from India, and they've intermarried. We brought European slaves also, people to build the Suez Canal, and so all kinds of things. Tell them that if they want the cash and they want to be a head teacher, like an imam, basically, they got to learn this Quran. They got to know what the meanings of this book are. We wrote the dictionaries, we're printing the Qurans, or we're training them in the first place. We opened the Darul Uloom where they can memorize this Quran, and all these other things. And they've got to understand how to pray, all these principles and everything, because there was reasons. And to make sure that the people got married also, because the birth rate was going out of control. People were just having children, people weren't getting married, people were basically sleeping around and other things, because they brought them as slaves, kidnapped them, children for the Suez Canal. They grew up without any proper languages or anything. If people know this history, it's actually very sad. So another reason is it's not a conspiracy to just hide it. Well, it is, but the thing is, who wants to bring out this sad history? It seemed like, when people find out their ancestors were orphans, kidnapped, they start after.
Yeah, but why is it important so it does not happen again? I mean, that's obvious, no?
It's not about to happen again, but the thing is, it's like nobody wants to believe it, that their great ancestors were a type of religion called original Islam in Northern Europe until the collapse of Moscow. Then everything collapsed, and then they ended up in America and Australia. And if you tell them, they're going to say, no way. Yeah. So the thing is, if you tell these people there in Egypt and said, hey, your great grandfathers, they came from there, but many people kept the history, and many people have forgotten. Yes, not only that, but the Khedive, basically that's the Pasha, the Circassians or Russians. Yeah, so what they did was, you got to make sure there's a group of Christians here now. Yes. And there's Jewish schools they opened too. So by 1910, what did they do?
By 1910, the Khedivial Training College was teaching Christian teachers how to instruct their primary school pupils in Coptic Christianity.
So what is clear now is that the British were printing Qurans. The British were opening up these Islamic schools, kutabs or madrasas, and they were teaching people to memorize the Quran and to learn this Arabic language, and they gave the meanings to these Arabic words, and they provided the Arabic dictionaries. At the same time, they're opening Christian schools and training Christian teachers, so that many of these people who they brought from the other parts of the world, like Yemen, Kuwait, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, so that many of these people could become Christians and Muslims. Well, they fought them during the construction of the Suez Canal. And these people, they brought them and they multiplied. And the population grew very fast. They were brought in a disorganized fashion, and basically it was criminal what they did. They kidnapped them. Yes, they brought them as forced labor, or slavery as you would say. But also they brought many people from Europe also as construction workers. Many of them were forced to come. They were slaves. But the thing is, of course, they're going to just say it's forced labor. So it's shocking to see what the British actually did. They're opening up Islamic schools to actually learn the Quran, to learn how to pray. And they're training these teachers also. Yes, and they're opening up Christian schools. Therefore, we've got these Christians in Egypt today. Yes, and they're teaching them how to pray and other things as well. So it's very shocking. Yeah. Well, anyway, what happens after this is that the British devolved responsibility for education to these so-called priests. The priests were making money. And so
right, because they were already the approved head teachers that did exactly what the British wanted, of course.
Yeah, and so the thing is, what they formed is the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes?
Ah,
And so the schools got bigger. They started offering what we would call, people say Western style education. No, they started learning history, geography, fake history. And so many people who were learning the Quran from the 1880s, they had to give them hadith later, 20 years later. They grew up because people are asking, who is this Prophet Muhammad? Yes. Then they had to show them, Hajj, it's over here. Then they brought this book. They brought all these things. It came from Europe. Yes. So the thing is, it was a joke. There was other Western people coming, opening schools there in the cities for the 5% and things like this. But that 5%, there were these, for the Circassians and the Russians and other things, or what they call Turks or the Ottomans. Unfortunately, the world was a racist place, and the thing is, we've improved today. But the thing is, many people, so the British were opening up all these kitabs, and read the second paragraph.
while the primary purpose of pre-colonial kutab education had been to teach religious rituals and aid in the memorization of key religious texts, in the new government schools the emphasis was on secular subjects, with the prominence of religion in education inversely proportional to the students' economic status.
Yes. Okay, but
Just one thing, just to be clear what this means exactly. So this means if they were poor, they were learning a lot of religion.
95% is poor. You saw it in 85%. Even today, 50% is living in the villages.
Right, so those that were poor, they got a lot of religious education. Do I understand this correctly?
I'll break it down.
Okay.
So now the purpose, this is important, of the pre-colonial was to teach religious rituals and memorization of only the key texts. That's 5% of the Quran. That was the purpose. But the pre-colonial ones only opened up 10, 20 years before. And they were colonial too, because nobody realized that these Circassians, Russians, and Eastern Europeans who came, they were invaders too. And they weren't the local people. Who were the local people? They brought them. I'm going to go through that in a minute. Yes. So they only memorized 5 or 10% basic things of how to pray. Yes. And they were given the meanings for it. Yes. The new government schools, you're only talking about, that's just a few percent. Yes. So even as you saw, by 1950, 85% were illiterate. You see? So when we're talking in 1933, yes, this 10% of the people who were studying, that's like still the upper class, the very rich. You see? You see? You've got to be realistic here. So not many people will take this out of hand and say, hey, they were learning, Arabic, arithmetic, secular subjects. No, we're talking only about, 10% of the people. Yes, and this 10 out of that 10%, 1% Jewish, 2% Christian, yes, and about 5% of the Circassians and Europeans, about 3 or 4% are from the elite families and from the Indians who came, who then what you call Arabs today. Yes, so we'll go through that to have a look at to see what do you call it? Yes, what was going on in these things. Let me just see. Yes, so same like everywhere else, in India, in Malaysia, and throughout the Indian Ocean. Don't forget, Egypt, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, India, Bengal, and then Malaysia, Indonesia is all part of the Indian Ocean. And the British, Dutch, and the East India Company, French ships in the East India Company, all of them are going around that region. And the slave trade was so big, it's unbelievable. Yes, that many of the Arabian countries just abolished slavery in the last 50 years ago. But read from here, what were the British doing? In 1897?
In 1897, the British built Masjid al-Jami in Kuala Lumpur. A.B. Hubbock. The city's acting architect came from India, where he worked in the public works.
Yeah, the British were building all these mosques everywhere for the local people. Yes, so you could read this.
We have the Jamek Mosque. The mosque was designed by British architect and soldier Arthur Benison Hubbock and built in 1909. It was the principal mosque of Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah. So the thing is, many of these mosques, and many of them, they've given them fantastic ancient history. You could read this.
Sultan Suleiman Royal Mosque is Selangor's royal mosque, which is located in Klang, Selangor, Malaysia. It was constructed by the British in the early 1932 and was officially opened in 1933 by the late Almarhum Sultan Sir Aladdin Sulaiman Shah.
Yes, so the thing is, they built hundreds of mosques, and the thing is, in fact, what is shocking is that this is very shocking. Carry on reading. Yes.
Yes.
Malaysian mosques.
Mosques and other buildings that were made by British architects who adopted the architectural languages of British India.
Yeah. So the thing is, they started the process in India, and then it spread. It spread to the east into Indonesia, Malaysia, into the west, into Arabia and Egypt. But what do we see? Yeah, carry on reading. British colonizers in this one.
British colonizers sought to bring classical architecture, which presented a more Middle Eastern, Islamic style to the mosques, seen in the domes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so not only that, but people can check. So all these people, they took the Quran throughout the entire region. Yes, today we'll focus on Egypt, but here is examples. Like you could read this. Yes, the Dutch authorities.
The Dutch authorities introduced specific policies on the administration of Islamic law, the pilgrimage to Mecca, and religious education.
Yes, the reality is, after Mehmet Ali Pasha, yes, and the Circassians or the Russians took Mecca, Medina, there was nothing in these cities, and they found these locations. Mecca already had some religious significance. The evidence shows that there was something there, and it was like the central location of the world or something, and there was a tent there like the tabernacle of Moses. And then the thing is, it only became a central focus after Moscow collapsed, and then Mehmet Ali Pasha seized the place, and that it was only constructed after the mid 19th century, and then the Europeans were what do you call it? Yes, were taking people to Hajj and things like this, and they basically did everything. Yes, people can check all these things out, and they were competing. Yes, the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, the French East India companies, and other things. So they were all competitive, as you can see. Yeah, you could read this.
The British East India Company was fiercely competitive with the Dutch and French throughout the 17th and 18th centuries over spices from the Spice Islands.
It's not just spices, the real thing.
It's an interesting example.
Yeah, they're trying to make it sound nice. But here, have a look. This is the way that the Europeans treated these people. This is in the 20th century. Yes, you can see they've got white cloth on, and of course, the military have got a bit more better cloth on. But the thing is, here, the so-called discovery of Tutankhamun's grave. Now, when you look at downtown Cairo, you can even see this is very important, because when they brought them over as slaves, yes, of course, they're going to say laborers and workers. Here is in the 1930s. Yes, and so this is in a district where the locals were. It's like, for example, if you were a Circassian house, you, your wife, your 3-4 children, you would have probably 10 servants. One in the living room, one in the corridor, one there, one to carry your shopping, one to do the
It's like some families have in India today, from what I heard.
Yes, for night security, things like this, everything. So the thing is, many of these people came, and they've all got white clothes on. It's because many of these people in the countryside were absolutely, totally naked. I'm being deadly serious on this. And so the thing is, they brought a lot of people, one, to build fake monuments and build the cities and other things, and to build the Suez Canal. They brought them from the Indian subcontinent. And these children, of course, they had no education, nothing whatsoever. Yes, so they gave them this Islam. They brought these people here. They are working in Luxor. You'll find many of these Egyptian cities didn't even exist. You can see there's no houses there, nothing from the past, that nobody could have survived in that desert region. And even the thing is, nobody could have survived. I mean, there was no food there. Even the irrigation was only completed in the 20th century for the Nile River so that you could grow food. Yeah, so they brought these people, and the thing is, of course, the thing is, they brought children. This is an example. This is a bit later, but the thing is, those children were born from they call them forced labor, from the children of the forced labor. Now, the forced labor was men, girls, and many of them were like 12, 13 years old because they knew that older people would probably run away. So they brought them. Yes, and they brought 1.5 million of them. 1.5 million. Yes, in the 1850s and 60s. So when they brought them, those people that were sleeping around, there was no marriage, no nothing, and there was a high birth rate. It was so high that the population basically doubled, and then it's just kept on increasing until they managed to get this Islamic system out there, yes, to turn around and say, hey, you can't just sleep with somebody, yes, or you've got to ask permission from the parents and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But still, they've not managed to get rid of this. Like, so here are photographs in the late 19th century. It's like they brought many of these people. They're going to say they were already there. There is no evidence that they were already there. The Africans that you saw in the photograph, with the who intermixed with the Indians, and you could see they became, Egyptian. Yes. So the thing is, of course, yes, you've got the Circassians and the Ottoman Muslims, the great Muslim Caliphate. Yes, here they are. They look very Islamic indeed. Don't you think so? In the 1920s and 30s.
Look like straight out of, I don't know, London or Paris or something.
Allah has blessed them so much. Yes, they love Allah so much. This is so Islamic here, we can see. Yes, and this is the Ottoman Sultan Abdul Hamid's granddaughter here we're talking about, and her husband was the new Sultan. Yes. This is very Islamic, wouldn't you say so?
Not really, no. I mean, not at least not from what we currently associate with it.
These people.
I can see her legs. What can I tell you? And her face and her hair.
They organized the administration of the Cairo Quran in 1924. How dare you say that the administrators with the British invaders, they're both working together? The British invasion, they actually brought them because the peasants were outnumbering the Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
And they were getting out of control. Soon we'll go through it, that the peasants took control of the army and the military and the weapons. So that's why the British and the French had to invade in the 1870s. Are you beginning to see?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they came, because there was too many of them. So the thing is, it's because it's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with too many humans or whatever. The problem is they brought them in a disorganized fashion. They brought them as slaves. They call it forced slavery.
Right.
And these people have bred at a huge rate that the population basically tripled or quadrupled. That it became a joke. That how are you going to feed them? Where are they going to live? Things like this. And of course, they're going to give you a nice history. And what are they going to say about these Muslim women? And so, of course, that's what they're going to tell you. What did they say? Read this.
Yes, Egyptian women were more empowered in the 1900s.
Bullshit. Oh, sorry, I just coughed. Yes, Egyptian women were more empowered. So, of course, it's because they don't want you to see the history. Whereas the reality of, yes, some of the peasants who were with who were working for the richer families had a bit of clothes. Yes, and you can see that woman is wearing like rags that looks like a sari. I mean, these are the rich peasants. This is how the reality of how the locals were living. Yes, and those many who interbred with the Africans, the skin color went darker. Yes, because of the sun. But when they covered their bodies, their skin became a lot lighter. So this was the state of the reality. And then those peasants who were living in the cities working for the Europeans or Circassians, the Muslim Ottomans, or what they called the Turks, there they are in the city areas. They were a bit more privileged. Of course, they still don't have shoes. So when they come to the mosque, they demanded them, please wash your head, hand and feet. Yes,
It's
and of course,
quite
yes,
practical.
yes, some of them, they gave them a bit of extra education and they took photographs, they gave them the flags and they said emancipation of the Muslim women who became educated. Like, this is the fake history they're going to give you. You could read this out yourself. Yes.
As March drew to a close this year, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, together with his wife Intisar, participated in a celebration held at Manara Center on the outskirts of Cairo on 30th March 2019 to honor Egyptian women, holding the special significance of coinciding with the centenary of the 1919 demonstration. This year's celebration was organized by the National Council for Women.
Okay. Now the thing is, what happened is, when you see these clothes, many of the black and white color at that time, because of you know, crude oil, petroleum, and all these other things. Now we have coloring in clothes. Here is let's say Lancashire was the heart of the textiles industry, and there were other places. Yes, so the thing is, many of these cloths were manufactured by European companies. Europeans had the machinery, and they were making them. Here's a factory. Here's a factory of the Tata family. The machinery came from Europe, and as you can see, they're making the white cotton. Yes, and that's why many of these people are dressed in white. Yes, and so the Europeans, you know, brought these people, they gave them the white cloths, and that's why the cloth was long like that. That was the invention of the sari. Yes, and all these other things, and of course in Europe also. Yes, because they had to keep the system running. So they were kidnapping children after the collapse of Moscow from Eastern Europe. These children, the next generation, were in Germany, France. They carried on kidnapping and things like this. So that's why we will see that in Cairo, these people have got the cloths. So it's like we have a global economy. Everybody helped each other. I mean, I'm saying in a nice way that because those children did work, those people who were kidnapped, they managed to wear the clothes and everything. But some of the people are going to say it's the tradition. It's not. So in India, you see them with these clothes. And here, if you went to Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia in the early 20th century, that's the wealthy people who the West trained. Yes, and they got independence. They're wearing these white cloths.
And just because it comes up in my head so strongly, there are quite a few depictions, like I guess popular art depictions or something, of Jesus, where Jesus is also kind of wearing this kind of a white cloth, no?
Ah, yeah, that's another long story. I don't want to divert. So it's because when we look at these white cloths, and like you said, you know, about the turban. So here, let's see where they brought these people from. Here is Pakistan in the 1900s. They don't look any different to Arabs. They don't. As you went north, they look a bit wider. Yes, in the south, they were a bit darker. So now the reality is, it's because of the administration of what the wealthy people did from Europe and from you know, the pashas and the principalities. They mismanaged everything. That even when the partition of India and Pakistan happened, people are still wearing the white clothes. And the thing is, you can't tell the difference if they're from Egypt or somewhere else. Yes, and then the thing is, many people became refugees because of religion. So now let's have a look at Karachi. So now here in Karachi, this is where the peasants or the local workforce came. This is where they would live. You could see the mud hut construction style, as we still see that construction is still there in places like Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Pakistan today. But let's have a look at the European buildings that they built. There was a huge European population in all these places of white Europeans. Yes, and the thing is that they brought many of these people, they mismanaged them, and there was a huge birth rate. That was a mistake because we're suffering from this. And the thing is, many people don't want to accept the reality. But let's have a look at the Afghans. They were trafficking Afghans all the way down to the Sindh Valley, down to Karachi, Gujarat, and all these places, and they brought them to the Middle East. And you'll see here is, what do you call it, the Pashtuns, the so-called Pashtuns, you can still see that if you look at this, yeah, it's actually, the thing is, if you look at this, you will still see that they were living in what we would call ancient Greece. That you could see his shield there. Yes, with a
Yeah.
gun. I'm not sure if
Uh-huh.
that's to protect from a bullet or something, but the reality is the world's history is sad. So many lies were invented to create fake history and give everybody a fake history. We're looking at Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran, Baluchistan, Pashtunistan, and all these things. So the reality is that. Now, the thing is, so the Europeans went to all these places, same like, let's compare it to Latin America today. In Latin America, in many places, there's many natives who are naked. They don't speak any proper languages. And as you can see, they've got cloth there that's made in machines. Yes, they're living a primitive life. Yes, so what happens is people from city areas, yes, from Europe who went, they built cities, they taught them Spanish, they gave them a book called the Bible and Christianity. So now on the other side, they went there, they taught them a language called Arabic, yes, they gave the dictionaries,
Mm-hmm.
they gave them a book called the Koran. Unfortunately, this is the actual history. Now, the Quran was already in Europe, but
Just to
that's another
understand or give a
story.
time frame, when would you say this, let's say, missionary activity
Time frame, we'll
happened
go through that
in the
later. I don't
Amazon?
want to
All right.
divert.
Mm-hmm.
It's because this is a big thing. There's many evil comments. People are saying, do you deny this is the word of God? Harassing other people. It's like, do you deny the Bible's the word of God or the Quran? It's like we've got Latin Americans are insisting. But if you look at it, the thing is they were brainwashed. And the thing is, look, they've got some clothes there. Somebody taught them farming, things like this, languages, go to schools. But here is their ancestry. This is happening right now. Yes, that we could see that some other Latin Americans who interbred with Europeans who are called mixed, you could see somebody who's taller there, who lived in the city, has come there, and they're trying to, improve people's lives and things like this. So, what some people would call philanthropy, there is genuine people who are doing genuine charity. Yes, and so the thing is, let's go to the Suez Canal and the impacts of the Suez Canal. Yes, the impact is actually ridiculous. Yes, that totally changed the demographics of Egypt, or they weren't. It wasn't supposed to turn out like this. Here is what you call it. Here is some of the machinery as time went by, but they made people that they brought all these kids and other people use their hands to dig the place out.
What?
Yes, I'm being serious, Chief, that many people even remember. And they'll say, my grandfather's, I asked my grandfather, he told me his grandfather did this. And they'll say he
Wow.
came from somewhere we don't know. He was like kidnapped or an orphan or something. So the thing is, of course, somebody else will turn around and say, these Islamists and Quranists, they're already saying, David said this, but how can people remember 100 years ago? Oh no, the Europeans can remember, but the Muslims aren't smart enough to remember. Because we want to give a fake history of the Quran with our fake dictionaries. Sorry, game over, pal. Yes, we're trying to brainwash people. Let's go through some realistic things. Today, it's got about 120 million people. Some people will say 110. The government is trying to reduce it and things like this. And the thing is, even in Pakistan, the mismanagement, unfortunately, people aren't seeing this. It's going to affect the rest of the world. It's like today, 245 million. It's like I'm surprised. Yes. So in 245 million today. Just look at this. I mean, just 30 years ago, Pakistan's population was 115 million. What the hell are we going to do?
Okay,
At
yeah.
this rate, no, it's because what they did is they messed up the entire system and everything with the slavery and the colonial system. But a lot of the local people were involved. Yes, not just the Europeans. It wasn't supposed to be like that, but they messed up. Yes, after the fall of Moscow, things got out of control. So now let's see, you could read this.
Some sources estimate that over 30,000 people were working on the Suez Canal at any given period, that more than 1.5 million people from various countries were employed, and that tens of thousands of laborers died, many of them from cholera, and similar epidemics.
Yes. Now, what they did was because they destroyed Europe at the time, in the fields. So many people wanted to start a new life. People were migrating. And so they brainwashed people saying, come to Egypt, you could work there and start a new life. Suez Canal. People didn't know it was a desert. Same like if you're going to send people to the North Pole or Antarctica, no one knows what's in these places. You could brainwash them and tell them there's green fields, everything.
Yeah, you can start a new life and have to dig with your hands for 10 years or what?
Yes. So now the thing is they brought, they weren't supposed to because the Europeans, because of racism, they didn't want to bring many black people. So, but a lot of black people were also brought by, they call it the Sultan of Zanzibar, and the slave tribe, the British tried to stop it. Yes, and the thing is, they brought, the vast majority from India. The thing is, if they brought people from Aden or what's called Yemen or Oman, those people, their parents originally came from India anyway. And there was like mass scale breeding going on. Yes, they were breeding them at a rate. It was like a business. That's what encouraged the population explosion in that side of the world as well. But 1.5 million, basically kids we're talking about, teenagers. I mean, who have just been kidnapped and they've not had any sort of education whatsoever, and they're just sleeping around. What do you think happened to the population of Egypt? What do you think happened? So now when we look at it, Egypt's population, when you go through it, you will think it's a joke. That the population in 1882 was already 7 million. And the construction of the canal was what you call it, started in 1860. From 1860. So now when we see it was 7 million. So now when you calculate, what was going on, wait, a bit of background to the Suez Canal. Yes, here it is. So Ferdinand de Lesseps and things like this, they formed a company to build the canal. Yes, and the Circassian or Russian rulers, Mehmet Ali Pasha's children or grandchildren are there, and other people, they're there. They thought, hey, it's a good business deal. It's going to increase trade. And there was so many people involved. We're talking about trade between East and West. It's going to reduce the journey time and everything. It seemed like to build a tunnel. Yes,
right.
For a train from the Atlantic, from New York to Paris and London. It was that sort of a project. Yeah, so they wanted to do this. So they brought so many people over. Yes, and they didn't know what to do. So they brought all these people over. And then if anybody checks the population and the growth, and they go through Egypt's population growth on all these things from 1860 and what was before and after, you will see that everything was a joke. Let's show an example of people have got no idea. Here we're showing mass migration. So now we've got going to the Ottoman Empire and everything. They brought 1.5 million people, young people, strong people, and then they brought all these girls for them to sleep around with everything. It was just a joke. What the hell was going on? They kidnapped and brought them. Yeah. So the thing is, nobody can imagine 1.5 million people. So now when you look at Egypt's population around 1800, yeah, its population was 3 million people only when Napoleon invaded. Yes, 3 million people. And so the thing is, 3 million people. How the hell did it get to so high? Yes, how did it get so high? Whereas when we compare it to other places that didn't go through all this garbage, like for example, Iran's population was double. It was double in 1800. Yes, it was 6 million people. So when we compare Iran population today, yes, then you will see that because of the management, yes, it's because we didn't see this kind of mass scale slavery and a huge, not just slavery of bringing young people who are undisciplined, different languages from different places, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and other places, Aden, Yemen, from Kuwait. It's because that's the trading route. People who they probably took there 20 years before, they walked back in, kidnapped their children, and brought them. That in Iran today, from 6 million, it's got a realistic growth to 88 million. But when we look at Egypt, we see something happened, and it just went boom. It just went boom after they brought all these people. Yes. So the thing is, we can see the effect of bringing all these people. Yeah, turned the place into a joke. It turned the place into a joke that the population growth has just turned ridiculous, and you can't do anything about it now. Yes, that the population in 1900 was about 10 million. Yes, yes, and today it's 100 million. That they still couldn't control it. It's because these people, so they really needed to give them Islam quickly so that they get married or something. They had to give them a language and everything, and things like this are. It was out of control. I'm just trying to find the page of Egypt's population in 1900. Yeah, and then I can send it to you, and then you will see this is just an absolute damn disaster. Yes, can you see it on there? I've just sent you a new page, 1899 to 1900. Yes, you can see 1899 was 10 million. Can you see it? Egypt's population. Yes. So the thing is, it suddenly went up from 6 million to 10 million. Yes, 6, 7 million to 10 million. And we can even see, yes, the growth of the cities. Yes. So the thing is, you know, and at that time they brought them, but they didn't know that these people would become the majority. The British, there was people who opposed it and things like this, and other things, and you could read what do you call it? Angered by British opportunism. What does it say?
De Lesseps sent a letter to the British government remarking on the British lack of remorse a few years earlier when forced workers died in similar conditions building the British railway in Egypt.
Yes. So it's not just that. There's the it's a British railway. So even before the canal, this is before the canal is being built before the British invasion. So that means that you know, the Circassian government, Mehmet Ali Pasha's grandchildren, and the rest of them, they were together. Yes, and they said, let's bring these people, and so they brought other peasants. They were just bringing them. Yes, and of course, the thing is, they call it slave labor or forced labor. Yeah, where were they kidnapping these people from? Where did they come from? Nobody asks these questions, and they don't have a look. Like here, you'll see, yeah, they're working with their physical hands, no machinery, and just taking the soil out. And here they've taken a nice picture showing donkeys and other things. You know, the thing is, but when one compares many of these districts, even in Cairo, that the thing is, in Cairo, these peasants started to increase the population. When you look at old photographs, Cairo didn't even have that much of a population. Yes, it didn't have, and you can't even grow food there. You can see that these people haven't lived there for centuries. This is Cairo. You can see the pyramids in the background. And another strange thing is you can only see 2 of them in the background. Yes, you can't see 3 of them, or maybe, but then, you know, maybe they've modified this picture just to show the pyramids. But it's like the thing is, yeah, if they are there, but many of the buildings are new that you could see. That if you went there today, you will be surprised. This is a Mehmet Ali Pasha Mosque, which, yeah, the Muslims will call Muhammad Ali Pasha. That you could go through different districts, different areas of the city, you'll see that it's half empty. Yes, yes. And the thing is, today, if you go there, you're going to think, oh, the city is packed out and everything. They've given it a fake history and everything. But the thing is, and then you'll see many buildings that they're going to say are ancient mosques, but you'll see it's just similar to any of the buildings that you'll find in, you know, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Milan, or in any of the places that these buildings would be called mosques. But you can see from the towers, some of them are industrial buildings and other type of buildings that we see in Europe, and shabby construction of some of the buildings. You could just see that it looks like, you know, European cities. And then if you go through the old district, you know, what they will say, the Al-Azhar district, and you look at some of these buildings properly, yeah, you'll see that the thing is they were built by Europeans before, and then of course you walk through it. I've walked through it. It's an amazing district. Many buildings look like industrial buildings, and many of the buildings are actually buried. It's ridiculous. The amount of burial shows some type of disaster or something happened. But here is supposed to be one of these ancient mosques to prove that it's Islamic history. Yes, but the thing is and for them to justify these Qurans or whatever and say these old things. Yeah, there's Arabic writing there. Yes, the Arabic was used in Europe too. But the spelling and many other things are different, and some Arabic writing is new, and they're saying it's all. You can see these are buildings that we see like in Gothic cathedrals, they're basically the same. And of course, it's an ancient mosque today. Yes, and you can see they've just added domes on. Yes, this is in the Al Azhar district. You can see it clearly. Yes, and while the British were there and everything, added fake minarets or something, fake decorations, everything. But you can clearly see that some of these things they've tried to Easternize them. Like let's have you can see it or you can't see it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like have a look at this building here. You'll think, it's just a Gothic cathedral that what do you call it? Yes, that they've just modified to make it look a bit Eastern on some of the things and the arches. Same like you will see on what people will call Temple Mount or Al-Aqsa Mosque. There's that cathedral mosque on top of there that you can see it's been modified and other things. Yeah, there's the old Arabic writing there, which people are saying Usmani Arabic or something. And the thing is, so, and then Flamenco points out that there's all these tombs here. Maybe they've modified some of the buildings. But the thing is, the similar tombs that we see with the designs, yeah, they've probably added a few things to the minarets, God knows. But these districts are not empty today. And you'll see that these buildings are similar to things that we find in Uzbekistan and throughout Europe. And they've probably modified the dome shapes. It's like you will clearly see that they just look like Gothic cathedral buildings that we see in Northern Europe, some of them. Can you see it there? Or you cannot see it? It's like you can totally see it's been added to and other things that when you see it, and God knows, even in the European ones, they've modified them to make them look more Christian, to make them look genuinely Christian.
Yeah, the only issue is because I live in Vienna, at least here we even have some churches that look more like dome mosques or something. So I'm used to all type of buildings.
Yeah, and here is Al-Azhar University itself, and here you can see the great Al-Azhar students sitting on the floor, disorganized, while the British Governor General is training these people to learn Arabic. And you can see that, and this is the main Al-Azhar. I've been there. You can even see that most of these arches and all these other things, the pillars, they're actually brand new from the 19th century. They're not even that old. Yes. Now the thing is, because this is taking a lot longer than I expected, we'll have to go through the entire slave trade of bringing these people there and everything some other time, or people can study it themselves. It's taking a bit too long. I actually thought maybe I could finish it off now, but unfortunately, it's taken a lot longer. But here is an example of Arabic writing in Russia. Yes. 200 years ago. It doesn't look anything like the modern Arabic that's in the Cairo 1924 Quran. The shapes, the symbols, many other things have been modified. So people are going to say, what about these Quran verses that we see in certain places in northern Russia? Yes, and the Ottoman dictionaries, nobody wants to look at that. The Quranists don't want to look at it because then their fantasies are dead. And their invented meanings for the Quran is dead. It's game over. So the Islamists too don't want to. It's game over. So here is, for example, the British in Egypt and in Palestine, that you can even see many of these people are ethnically the same as that their ancestors, they came from India. And we'll go through that now, some of the basic things. So the thing is, mysteriously, you could read this. After the British and the French invaded the Middle East, what happens?
The French invasion of Egypt and Syria in 1798 marks the dawn of the Renaissance. Oh, here they write it in
The
a funny way.
rebirth?
Yes, of Arabic literature and the
Oh, everybody forgot Arabic
infiltration
for a
into
thousand
it
years.
of Western influences. Yeah, sounds like
It's
it.
not a
Yeah.
Western influence, it's a Western invention. Oh, they forgot Arabic for 1,000 years. Now, because there are people who are going to try and say nobody remembers the oral tradition, because for these original meanings that when the British opened up, let's say, the madrasas and the kutabs in Egypt and in India, and the French opened them up in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, people can go and check this globally. So the thing is, they're going to say they can't remember from 100 years ago. These pathetic Islamists and Quranists, because they want to lie, and I will prove that they're lying. Yes, here we have what do you call it, orphans in the 1850s, 60s, 70s that they took, and the thing is, what do you call it? Yeah, oh, the Europeans and the Americans can remember. You could read this. Yes, ancestor was. This is from Reddit. People talking about their families. You could read it.
Yeah, ancestor was an orphan. There weren't no orphans in our family.
Not in my family. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Next family.
My grandfather told me that she never talked about the relationship. Mm-hmm.
Europeans who went to America and other places, they talk to their grandparents. But no, when it comes to the Muslims, the Quranists and the Islamists, because they only want to go by their dictionaries and fake history, they'll say, no, the Muslims and the Arabs, they didn't talk to their grandparents. Maybe they were aliens or something, or robots programmed not to talk to their grandparents. Yes, and I'm here. So this is how we know there is an oral history. Like, you could read this. What does this person's grandfather say?
My grandfather told me that Narki's father was part Native American. Then there's another paternal grandfather who was orphaned. Mm-hmm.
Ah, that means people pass down history. But no, in Egypt or in the Middle East or the Muslims don't have an oral history. Yes, they didn't ask their grandparents what their grandparents said. Yeah, you could read this one. My grandfather.
My grandfather told me tragic stories of loved ones being brutally tortured and killed. Later on, I asked my mother about my ancestry.
No, they didn't really ask. All this history is a lie, because many of these people who want to preach their Quranism or Islamism, yes, things like this, don't want to accept it. They just want to go by dictionaries, invent meanings, and all these things that the Europeans wrote these dictionaries and everything. But the reality is coming out. The Quran came from Europe. Yes, what does this person have to say?
I do have a birth certificate, although my grandfather told me it was his brother's birth certificate. Mm-hmm.
What? Oh no, his grandfather didn't tell him anything. Because according to these Islamists and Quranists, nobody can remember 100 years ago. So he asked his grandfather, and his grandfather could remember his birth certificate because his parents told him that it was his brother's certificate. Yes. Oh no, no way can you can find this out. It's just fake history. No, no. People have got an oral history. Yes, the Muslims have one too. Yes. So the thing is, what we are being told, yes, what we have been told is, why did the British and the French invade Egypt? Yes, you could read the second paragraph.
The purpose of the invasion had been to restore political stability to Egypt under a government of the Khedive and international controls that were in place to streamline Egyptian financing since 1876.
Okay, so the thing is, I want you to read this, because now, after they brought these children who were 10, 11, 8 years old, yes, they grew up. Yes, and their children are already, many of them got pregnant, girls aged 13, 14, 15. Yes, so now we're talking 25 years later. Yes, what happens? You could read the first paragraph now.
All right. Yes. Anti-European violence broke out in Alexandria, prompting a British naval bombardment of the city. Fearing the intervention of outside powers or the seizure of the canal by the Egyptians, in conjunction with an Islamic Revolution in the Empire of India, the British led an Anglo-Indian expeditionary force at both ends of the Suez Canal in August 1882.
Okay, so that's what they've told us. This history sounds believable. Islamic Revolution. Yes? So that's what they've told us, but the reality is something else. Yes? So the thing is, we've been told that the British invaded. Yes. But even I found this to be a total joke. Yeah, read this yourself. You're going to think, what the hell is going on here?
A Cook's tour of imperialism. Egypt is now in the hands of two armies of occupation. One is composed of British soldiers and the other of the men of Thomas Cook.
Thomas Cook and Sons. Yes, so now the British Army and Thomas Cook and Sons. Yes, here even 100 years later, what type of soldiers?
Indian soldiers, then the British Army, in Egypt after a successful campaign in World War I.
Yes. Well, basically, the British Army in Egypt, yes, half of them were like, what do you call it, yes, Indians. So they brought Indians. And then Thomas Cook and all the others, yes, they brought Indians too, and they brought Indian workers to build all these fake ancient Egyptian sites. Yes, all this information is in my book, Ancient Egypt Did Not Exist. If people don't read that, they won't understand. So this goes back to that time. Yes, it goes back to that time that they brought all these people, yes, to do the construction work, because nobody's living in the damn desert. Yes, they brought all these people. Ancient Egypt didn't exist. So now the thing is in that book, but I want you to read this carefully. Why Thomas Cook's going to invade? Because he's brought all these Indians now, and these Indians are called the Egyptians, or these Indians are rebelling. But they brought them earlier, yes, to start the construction of the fake sites.
Egypt's political turmoil took a hit on Thomas Cook's first half results, losing over 250,000 would-be travelers.
This is an example. Yes.
This is from 2014. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm giving an example. So for that time, the instability, yes, caused a joke. So now the thing is, what we're told in official history for that time, 100 years ago, we are told this. This is why they invaded. This is why they will say it. You can read it.
Under Khedive Ismail, the Egyptian government went bankrupt in 1875, and by 1882, the British invaded the country both to repress the national Urabi revolt.
Okay, when they say Urabi, soon people will realize this was the name of a general. But basically, his title is the Arab revolt, or the peasants' revolt. It's because they ran out of cash. They ran out of food, they ran out of many other things. And the thing is, so these peasants now who've grown up, and there's millions of them, they just went crazy attacking the European quarters, everything. You see, the servants turned on the masters. Yes, I'm going to go through this. So the thing is, it's like when you check through this, you'll think, what the hell? They're totally lying to make it look like the Arabs revolted. No, the British came back to help the Circassians and the Russians and the Europeans. You know, you saw the Circassians and the Ottoman there. They look like very religious people in the photos. You could read this. Yes. By 1882,
Islamic and Arab nationalist opposition to European influence led to growing tension amongst natives, especially in Egypt, which was then the most powerful, populous, and influential of Arab countries. The most dangerous opposition during this period came from the Egyptian army, which saw the reorientation of economic development away from their control as a threat to their privileges. The Urabi Revolt, a large military demonstration in September 1881, forced the Khedive Tewfik to dismiss his prime minister and rule by decree. Many of the Europeans retreated to specifically designed quarters suited for defense or heavily European settled cities such as Alexandria.
Okay, so one, there is a huge European population there. Many people don't know about this. So the thing is, by that time, yes, there was a growing movement of these slaves who are asking for freedom. And the thing is, there was a general there called the Urabi Revolt. And so many of these people that they brought from India are actually in the army. Yes. And even in the next generation, they grew up there as natives. And the thing is, they use nice words like privileges. It's not privileges. Yes. The thing is, so many of these so-called Europeans and these Circassians and Turks and everything, the thing is, it's because they were becoming a minority. The immigration became a majority. Yes. So
Hmm.
you could read this. Tawfiq, yes, was one of the Circassians and Turks. He moved to Alexandria with the rest of the Circassians, Russians, as the officers led by Ahmed Urabi began to take control of the government. You could carry on reading this.
By June, Egypt was in the hands of nationalists as opposed to European domination of the country, and the new revolutionary government began nationalizing all assets in Egypt. Anti-European violence broke out in Alexandria, prompting a British naval bombardment of the city. Fearing the intervention, we had this already, of outside powers
Yeah.
or the seizure of the canal by the Egyptians, in conjunction with an Islamic revolution in the Empire of India, the British led the Anglo-Indian Expeditionary Force at both ends of the Suez Canal in August
Basically, more
1882.
Indian soldiers. It's an
Yes,
Indian
I mean
invasion.
it's even called Anglo-Indian Expeditionary
Yeah,
Force. Yeah.
they're going to say it's Anglo. It's just Indians and East India companies, businessmen, cash. You know, that's what it was.
Yeah, a few
Gangsters.
British businessmen and officers and a whole lot of Indians.
Probably not even them. You don't even know. Maybe Russians and other things.
Mm.
So it's business people. Maybe it was you, it was me or you. Or yeah, it's a lot to do with money. So French forces land in Alexandria at the same time. So basically, they do this and they get rid of this Mohammed Urabi and his people. So, and what did they do after they defeated the what do you call it? These peasants' revolt. The purpose of the invasion.
Had been to restore political stability to Egypt under a government of the Khedive and international controls that were in place to streamline Egyptian financing since
Yes, or
1876.
basically to put the Circassians back in power.
Hmm.
So now, when somebody has a look, they've given him a fake surname, Ahmed Arabi, basically. Yes, and they've given him a name. And who was he? You could read it, Ahmed Arabi.
Ahmed Urabi, also known as Ahmed
Call him Arabi. They've given a fake
Urabi
whatever
or
so that
Rabi
you don't know.
Pasha, was an Egyptian military officer. He was the first political and military leader in Egypt to rise from the fellahin peasantry. Urabi participated in an 1879 mutiny that developed into the Urabi Revolt.
Yeah, basically. So as you can see what's going on. You know, these people, they grew older and they became the majority. You see? And they're going to say that these people came thousands of years ago. We're going to have to go through,
Hmm.
next time, we're going to have to go through the trafficking of the people there because,
Yes.
or it will drag on too long. And people can go and check this themselves. Yes? And the entire thing of what was going on at the time and after this time, and then how it came to, you know, with the education of the schools, nobody was learning the Quran. There were no schools there. The land was basically empty. It's a desert. Come on. Same like in Arabia, we'll also find there was no Quran schools. There was nothing there. Arabia, Yemen, what do you call it, Oman, Kuwait, all these regions. And then when you check it, we'll go through all the countries one by one over the next 6 months if we have to. I, yeah, if we have to, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to accept lies from Islamists or Quranists who are trying to harass people just because they want to say that something is the word of God or to say that this means that this is what God is saying. Yes, we'll go through the evidence. We're not here to, push an agenda and show God. Yes, but the thing is, as you can see, Egypt had about 3 million people. Out of those 3 million people, um, the vast majority came from Eastern Europe and all these are the places, and there were Russians there. Yeah, call them Russians or Turks or whatever, Circassians, whatever. And the thing is, um, it's the sad history of mankind. They brought these people as slaves and peasants throughout the 19th century, and then these people became the majority. Yeah, there was a lot of intermarriage and everything. In the end, they thought we're going to have to mix together. Yes, we brought these people, we did this to them.
Hmm.
Yes. And so the thing is, then they had to provide them an education and all these other things. We're going to go through the exact processes and who did what, because it's not so long ago. It's only in the 1910s, 1920s, 30s, 40s. 85% couldn't even read or write this Arabic.
Hmm.
Yes. Or, just in 1950. Yes. And the thing is, only 1% were reading the Quran in the 1870s and 80s. Who set up that 1%? Where did it come from? Where did it begin? Yes, what happened with the Circassians and the fall of Moscow and all these other things? Yes, and so there's a lot of information about this in my books. Yes, if people read my books or the books of Professor Fomenko, they'll find more information. And two of the best books that I've done that shows the forgery of the religions and shows the meaning behind some of these things are in my book, Secrets of the Kabbalah and 33 Degrees. Any questions, Raphael? Sorry to make you so sad, Raphael.
Well, I've never necessarily, held anything to be directly from God. So it is, how should I say, I guess good to learn more and understand more about this, because then we can glean, what is valuable information without necessarily having an absolutist approach. And as you've shown, the Quran does contain a lot of valuable information, and then we can
Yeah,
focus on
yes,
extracting that.
I talk about history. I talk about things, and if there is something that's got good information and everything, of course I'm going to say it. But I'm not going to give and tell lies about this history, about something, because people's lives depend on finding a history, so that then they can figure out where we came from. Like, I'm not going to have the hypocrisy that many Muslims, yes, they read the book Skulls and Bones, and then I showed that there were skulls and bones in many places, and the story didn't make sense. Like, for example, I will give an example that the thing is, what doesn't make sense is that, let me show an example of, what do you call it? Here is a church, St. Stephen's Church in Luke, Switzerland. Now, they've got thousands of skulls and bones there, which doesn't make sense. And if they're going to say that they can't find no place to bury these things, and the thing is, they've got all these skulls and bones in the basement of God's church,
Right.
in a cellar, and it was hidden. And the thing is, anybody can do the calculation, and that in 2021 this village only had 4,000 people. We can't find any old buildings. That means nobody was in the region or the area to show that there was a civilization or anything there for that many skulls and bones. And so it shows that the history doesn't make sense, and they're lying, and that they must have done something and killed these people, brought them there for some type of sick history or something. Or yes, so in the same way, when people check the history and the population growth of many countries in the world, it doesn't make sense why in some places there's more people compared to the amount of
Hmm.
farmland that's available. Let me just
Yes.
show you. Let me just show you Egypt, an aerial view map of what do you call it? There's no farmland there, and then the thing is, there's not enough. It's like a total joke. Yes, that it just doesn't make sense what all these people are doing there. Yes, and it's got such a high population. It's gone up from 3 million that we don't have enough farmland there, that Egypt has to import grain and many other things from Eastern Europe, from America. It's dependent on a lot of foreign aid. I mean, just look at that. Yes, you can just see it. Yes, that there's not enough fertile land there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. the fertile land compared to Europe, that you turn around and think, hey, these people would have moved out of there centuries ago. So another reason why they created nation states and borders, it's so that you can manage all these people. A lot of it is not because of the conspiracy, but the conspiracy is the history. Yeah, they made a mistake. They shouldn't have brought that much slavery and that many people. Yes, and of course some people. It's like, for example, it's like you could take somebody from Bengal, and then you kidnap them, and then their children were born in Bombay as you got further west, and then 25 years later you took their grandchildren and you kidnapped them. They grew up in Kuwait, and they grew up as a slave there with one of the local people. And of course, you know how they treat the slaves, slave wife or slave in the farm. And then the next person's child grew up in Yemen as a slave, and then from there they ended up in Egypt. You know, like we're talking, you know, within about 60, 70 years. So that's how people were moved around. That somebody in Egypt will say, "Oh, my grandfather was brought from Yemen," but then if you went to Yemen and found his grandfather, and he'll say, "Ah, he was brought from what do you call it? Yes, Oman." And then you go before then, he was brought from what is called Pakistan, but British India. So it's like if anybody checks the entire trade and the entire thing, it's like, don't worry, we're going to go through it. Yes, there can be questions, but please, nothing just to justify your religious lies because you believe that something is the word of God. Yes, it's like it's not about belief. Many of these people are claiming, I know it's the word of God. And that is when religion becomes dangerous. And some of these people who are pushing things like this is the evidence of God, 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 God. Yeah, come on. It's not God who's doing violence. It's these people who are saying he's going to hell, she's going to hell. Oh, you're not going to heaven without Christ. You're not going to heaven without the Quran. Come off it. Peace or shalom was here before the Quran and before Christ. And it's going to be here in the future too, peace and shalom. It's up to us. It's up to us as people. It takes years to build a civilization. It just takes, minutes to destroy it. So what we've got in Europe and America, from both sides, from the right wing, from their pathetic voices and what they're screaming, and from the religious wings and their pathetic voices and other things, if they continue, they're going to destroy something. Cairo was a beautiful city when they built it. Go and see it now. It's a Paris, and go inside the buildings, they smell rat infested. And many of them still have the old lifts from 100 years ago. It's just totally destroyed. It's totally destroyed. The walls are broken in many buildings. In downtown Cairo, it's like Paris. It was based on Paris, and you'll see many floors in some of the buildings are useless. Everything has just become a joke, and it's just falling apart. And they don't know what to do. The population is just going to go up and up and up. No one knows what to do. So many people are saying, they're planning, plan MX and all these things and whatever. But no one knows what to do. They don't know what to do. Even I don't know what to do. The population, it's like it's increased from 10 million to 120 million in 120 years. It's like it's going up by a million people a year. It's a joke. It's because of what happened. And the thing is, they gave them Arabic, they gave them the Quran. They thought you could set up a system of a simple thing, and then other political forces of how Hadith got involved. And these are the thing, and businessmen, other people got involved. And then the idea of a global caliphate, global Islamism, it's how people got involved. It became a business. Yes, a lot of it has got nothing to do with they care the people or anything. We'll have to go through that. We'll go through the details. It's like when the British set up the schools, they didn't know that the Muslim Brotherhood would form out of it. Yes, when they brought all these servants and slaves, they didn't know that if you don't manage them properly, yeah, it was a mistake. Yes, same like now in Europe and America, we're making a mistake. We're enjoying ourselves. We're enjoying the products that come from the third world, and we can't see what we're doing, that their populations are going up. It's the mismanagement over there. And the thing is, we're not going to be able to handle it. While we're sitting in Europe, it's because we get the shirts, we're getting the food, the gas, the oil, we're getting all the products. We cannot see what's going on over there. I've seen it. The abuse is ridiculous. But because of that, the high birth rates and everything, it's a total disaster. I'm being serious to you. We're heading to disaster. That's why I keep repeatedly saying, help people in the other side of the world. And the thing is, just go to Cairo, yes, a place called Midan Tahrir, yes, book for a hotel in that area, yes, and stay in one of those hotels and check the buildings out and go and check everything out and just see there, and then go outside, yes, go outside and see how the majority of the people at more than half, yes, and then see what's going on and everything, and try and live with the locals, examine everything and see what happened. Any questions, Raphael? Yeah, of course, there's many questions. I'm going to make this clear. I'm going to write more information about it, and it's in my two books, Secrets of Kabbalah and 33 Degrees. A lot more information is there. The British invaded to restore stability. Yes, one, Thomas Cook and the others. But then many of the companies that were kidnapping and sending these children were Indians or Arabs themselves. They did it, and they brought it, and they told these European businessmen will get the job done, and the Europeans paid them, and they turned a blind eye. Same like today, yes. Chinese, Indian factories and Middle Eastern factories are saying, we'll manufacture the shoes, the shoelaces, the buttons on the computer mouse, the mobile phone, batteries, chargers, everything, the house light bulbs, every single detail. We'll manufacture it. And the Europeans and the Americans are saying, okay, we'll give you this much money to the Indians and the Chinese and the Arabs. That's what they're saying, and they're turning a blind eye what's going on.
Yeah.
It's the same mistake. It is the same mistake. You see, it's still continuing what happened before. So the thing is, and now the world's population is at 8 billion. It's going to be 10 billion soon. God knows, another 2 decades, I'm guessing. And then the thing is, if we don't do something, it's going to be 15 billion people by the end of the century. And the thing is, we've got to manage these things. It's all up to us. It's been 100 years. These problems in Palestine and in Egypt and these other things. A lot of the reason for the Palestinian conflict is because they brought these people from India. A lot of these people who actually live in Gaza are the descendants of these slaves who were brought, by the way. Many people don't know this. Yes, the thing is, unfortunately, yes. So the problem was caused by them, and then those British companies. Yes, they know this. It's the same companies that are still managing Egypt,
right,
and the Russian nobility or the Ottoman nobility or whatever. And of course, you can see how the Ottoman family was. The same people who published the Cairo 1924 Quran. Oh my God, they're having a great time. They're having a great time. And religion was supposed to make it better. Yes. And the thing is, I don't know what else to say.
Thank you,
Any
David.
questions? Yeah.
Well, always many questions, but as always, I think you made a great presentation and made sense as much as it can. And yeah, in order not to...
I feel I failed because I wanted to get all the information within this one video.
Oh, well, there's
it's taken too long.
always more information. We have 2 hours.
Yeah, it's already been 2 hours. Jesus. Yeah.
All right,
it's
then.
Going to take at least many more hours.
We'll continue next time, David. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes. Have a great day ahead. Okay. Bye.